Welcome back to CAN, Caribbean Affiliate News. My name is Siobhan Gobin. This segment of the news is sponsored by Total Caribbean Network. In international news, Bill de Blasio, a harsh liberal critic of Mayor Michael Bloomberg, won the most votes in the New York City Democratic mayoral primary on Tuesday, but may still face a runoff, according to unofficial results. With nearly 90% of precincts reporting, public advocate de Blasio was winning 40% and former city comptroller Bill Thompson 26%. De Blasio needs at least 40% of the official vote or he will face Thompson on October 1st to decide who will be the Democratic nominee in the race to succeed Bloomberg in running the most populous city in the United States. But with about 19,000 absentee and military ballots due to be counted starting on Monday, election officials said the runoff was up in the air. We will have a better sense on Monday, said New York City Board of Elections spokeswoman Valerie Vasquez. Neither candidate was willing to throw in the towel when they thanked their supporters late on Tuesday. De Blasio, a lanky 6'5" and one of the more liberal candidates on the ballot, called his campaign an unapologetically progressive alternative to the Bloomberg era. De Blasio ran on a platform opposing stop and frisk, a police tactic that overwhelmingly targets young black men and hailed by Bloomberg as critical to fighting crime. He also has proposed raising taxes on the city's highest earners to pay for universal pre-kindergarten. Thompson, the only black candidate in the race, vowed to stay in the race and battle de Blasio in a runoff if a runoff is called. Thompson lost the 2009 race to Bloomberg, who has been mayor for 12 years and is leaving office due to term limits. Christine Quinn, who would have been the city's first female and openly gay mayor if elected, was seen as most likely to follow Bloomberg's moderate policies. She won only 15% of the vote, the results showed. On the Republican side, Joe Lhota, a deputy to former Mayor Rudolph Giuliani, was the projected winner of the Republican mayoral primary. The former head of the city's Metropolitan Transportation Authority defeated John Catsimatidis, according to New York One. Lhota faces an uphill battle against the Democratic nominee in the city of 8.3 million people, where registered Democrats outnumber Republicans 6-1. Former New York Governor Eliot Spitzer, who resigned the state's top office in 2008 amid a prostitution scandal, conceded defeat to Manhattan Borough President Scott Stringer in the Democratic race for New York City Comptroller. U.S. President Barack Obama made an impassioned pitch to Americans on Tuesday night to support his push to punish Syria for purportedly gassing its own citizens, assuring a war-weary nation that a military strike is necessary because this is not a world we should accept. And I quote, "When dictators commit atrocities, they depend upon the world to look the other way until those horrifying pictures fade from memory," Obama said in a televised address from the White House at the end of the day of breakneck developments on the Syrian crisis. He goes on to say, "But these things happened. The facts cannot be denied. The question now is what the United States of America and the international community is prepared to do about it. Because what happened to those people, to those children, is not only a violation of international law, it's also a danger to our security." Obama took to the airwaves amid hopes that a diplomatic solution is at hand, one engineered by Russia, a frequent U.S. antagonist and Syrian ally. Bashar Assad's regime said it's accepted Russia's proposal to place its chemical weapons under international control for subsequent dismantling. Such a move, if sincerely implemented, could avert the need for American military intervention in the war-torn Middle Eastern country. The Russian proposal hit a snag later Tuesday, however, when Russian president objected to a French proposal involving the United Nations Security Council. Nonetheless, Obama said he'd ask Congress to postpone a vote on authorizing a military strike in Syria as Secretary of State John Kerry heads to Geneva on Thursday to meet with his Russian counterpart to discuss a possible resolution. But the U.S. is still insisting it might act if Syria drags its feet on handing over its chemical weapons, and Obama's White House address was meant to explain his reasoning to a deeply skeptical public. A flurry of polls in recent days suggests few Americans have any appetite for warfare in the dismal aftermath of Iraq and Afghanistan. Obama said he didn't blame them. And I quote, "I have resisted calls for military action because we cannot resolve someone else's civil war through force," he said. "After all, I've spent 4.5 years working to end wars, not to start them." But if the U.S. doesn't act, Obama said, it will embolden regimes around the world to use chemical weapons on their citizens, and such weapons could easily end up in the hands of terrorists hostile to the United States. Any Syrian strike, he added, would be far different than Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, and Kosovo. "I will not put American boots on the ground in Syria," he says. "I will not pursue an open-ended action like Iraq or Afghanistan. I will not pursue a prolonged air campaign like Libya. This will be a targeted strike to achieve a clear objective, deterring the use of chemical weapons and degrading Assad's capabilities." Obama has agreed to discuss Russia's proposal with the United Nations, the White House said Tuesday, even though he still intends to cajole a wary Congress to ultimately authorize U.S. military strikes against Assad's regime in the event that diplomatic efforts fail. September 11th, victims' loved ones are gathering at Ground Zero today to commemorate the attack's 12th anniversary with the reading of names, moments of silence, and serene music that have become tradition. At today's ceremony on the 2-year-old Memorial Plaza, relatives will recite the names of the nearly 3,000 people who died when hijacked jets crashed into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, as well as the 1993 Trade Center bombing victims' names. Beforehand, Governor Andrew Cuomo, musician Billy Joel, firefighters, and others are expected to join a tribute motorcycle ride from a Manhattan firehouse to Ground Zero. "No matter how many years pass, this time comes around each year and it's always the same," said Karen Hinson of Seaford, New York, who lost her 34-year-old brother, Michael Witterstein, a Cantor Fitzgerald employee. "My brother was never found, so this is where he is for us," she said as she arrived for the ceremony with her family. While preparations for the ceremony were underway, with police barricades blocking access to the site, life around the World Trade Center looked like any other morning, with workers rushing to their jobs and construction cranes looming over the area. Name reading, wreath laying, and other tributes will also be held at the Pentagon and at the Flight 93 National Memorial in Shanksville, while the commemoration unfolds at Ground Zero, where the mayor, who has helped orchestrate the observances from their start, will be watching for his last time in office and saying nothing. Continuing a decision made last year, no politicians will speak, including Mayor Michael Bloomberg. Over his years as mayor and chairman of the National September 11th Memorial and Museum, Bloomberg has sometimes tangled with victims' relatives, religious leaders, and other elected officials over an event steeped in symbolism and emotion. But his administration has largely succeeded at its goal of keeping the commemoration centered on the attack's victims and their families and relatively free of political image-making. Memorial organizers expect to take primary responsibility for the ceremony next year and say they plan to continue concentrating the event on victims' loved ones, even as the forthcoming museum creates a new, broader framework for remembering 9/11. Saying their crimes shocked the conscience of India, the prosecutor in the fatal New Delhi gang rape today called for all 4 convicted rapists to be hanged, while one of the defendants shouted out his innocence as police drove him into the courthouse. It was not clear which of the 4 men was shouting because his face was obscured behind the police van's heavy metal mesh, but he repeatedly called out, I am innocent, as the van drove past a scrum of reporters. A court convicted the men Tuesday in the December gang rape of a 23-year-old woman on a moving New Delhi bus, a brutal crime that unleashed a wave of public anger over the treatment of Indian women and a long unspoken epidemic of sexual violence. The woman died 2 weeks after the attack. The 4 faced either life imprisonment or death by hanging. Calls for the men to be executed have grown increasingly loud, with everyone from the victims' parents to top political leaders demanding the men be sentenced to death. Prosecutor Diane Krishnan said the attack shocked India's collective conscience and noted that the police report showed the men pulled out some of the victim's body parts after savagely penetrating her with an iron rod. There can be nothing more diabolic than a helpless girl put through torture, he said. Judge Yogesh Khanna said he would hand down the sentences on Friday. The four men sat in the back of the tiny courtroom in T-shirts and short-sleeved polo shirts, unshackled and with policemen holding them from both sides. They appeared impassive, though it was not clear how much they understood of the proceedings. Most of the day's argument was in English, a language that only one of the men, Vinay Sharma, is able to speak. They had no translator. Vivek Sharma, a defense lawyer representing Pawan Gupta, a 19-year-old fruit vendor, asked for a sentence of life imprisonment, noting that Indian law calls for execution only in very exceptional cases. The men's lawyers have long said they are innocent of rape and murder, though they have occasionally indicated some of the men may have been on the bus. They insist that any confessions had been coerced by police torture. Sharma said today the crime may have happened on the spur of the moment and urged leniency for his client because of his age and because he had to support his impoverished family. He said Gupta did not join in the rape or in violating the victim with the rod. The family of the victim watched from one row in front of the prisoners, close enough to touch one another. About 2 dozen protesters gathered today by the courthouse, calling for the four men to be executed. You are watching Caribbean Affiliate News. We will be right back.
Hey, excuse me, if you see me smiling, that's 'cause I'm chilling on Total Caribbean Network. It's your boy Wyclef Jean, man, and I'm chillin', man. Total Caribbean Network. Man, I love their style. Whoa, 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 whoa.